Show on ESPN Radio.
Up, nerds, the Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN News, the ESPN app, and Sirius XM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. Here's the thing of COVID. You have to, set your own shot here. Hold on a second. Hold on. Am I moving in the right direction? I am. Look at that, Raj. What else can I do? What can I do? I can star on the show, produce it, frame my shot. What else? You want me to juggle while I'm doing all this stuff? Reach me at 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can be a part of Max Kellerman Nation. I have a nation on the Dr. Pepper call-in line, 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-SAY-ESPN. ESPN Nation is presented by Dr. Pepper. It's official. College football's back. So is your favorite Dr. Pepper-loving college football town, Fansville. Head to a store near you to treat your inner college football fan to an ice-cold 20-ounce Dr. Pepper today. But first, it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. The Dolphins are naming Tua Tagovailoa their starting quarterback. A league source tells ESPN. I'm going to get into that. I'm going to get into the Cowboys. I'm going to get into the fact that Lomachenko and Lopez did a monster number on TV, just showing you put on the fights and they will watch. But I need to start with the headline today, Raj. It was a tremendous victory for me in our DraftKings league this week. And I know people want to hear about Tua and the Dallas Cowboys and such, but I really feel that we should begin this show with an analysis of what went right for me on DraftKings this week, Raj. Because I certainly dusted you.
You're really going to do this to the American people?
I think the people need to know. Look, I didn't see a lot of people talking about Kyler Murray as the quarterback to take this week. It was so obvious. Obvious. That Dallas secondary. Come on, not to mention the yards he's going to get on the ground. It was obvious. And yet, I alone in our league took Kyler Murray. So I think congratulations to me are in order. Raj, would you like to congratulate me on my win?
Mr. Kellerman, what did it take for you to put together, first there's questions from the press, of course. So where were you when you did this magnificent lineup? Were you in the bathroom? Were you driving? Or not driving, that would be dangerous.
It was a full team effort from the front office on down. A lot of thought went into it, a lot of lineup changes before kickoff, a lot of analysis, and we came together as an organization. Notorious QBR, that's the organization.
Okay.
And that's how we got the victory.
One more question from the press.
We're on to next week.
Mr. Kellerman,
Yep.
Do you expect to repeat?
Well, we take it one game at a time. As you know, it's going to be a brand new lineup. It's daily fantasy. Who else? We got Ben Lyons and Bill Wolf. We got Nick Tutz, Steve Mason in the league. We got a lot of competitors in the league, and we're going to be taking this 1 week at a time.
Okay, that'll be all questions.
So,
thank you very much, Max.
Okay, that was Straight Talk Wireless. Everything for less, only at Walmart. Straight Talk was about my fantasy team. I deserve it. Okay, I'm gonna reverse it. I'm going to get to Tua, but let me start with the Dallas Cowboys. You know what the Dallas Cowboys were in this recent iteration of their franchise with Dak Prescott as quarterback, and it even predates Dak. They were a team who put their draft picks where their mouth is, right? Everyone likes to pay lip service to the line of scrimmage. Less now than they used to, but I still do. Control the line of scrimmage. Does the quarterback have a pocket or not? That's really what it comes down to. And the Cowboys invested year after year after year. I want to say 4 out of 5 years they had a first-round pick go to the offensive line. It was something crazy like that. And so they had the best one in the league. And here and there, like the Raiders 3 or 4 years ago would pop up, look, maybe their offensive line is the best in the league. No, year in and year out, it was the Cowboys. The other names of the teams changed who had the O-lines, but the Cowboys were there every year because year after year they're drafting in the first round. Not like, we're devoting some resources second, third round. First round picks, and they had an all-pro front five, right? All-pro offensive line. Front five, I just made that up, Raj. Why not? Why not call the offensive line the front five? Anyway, that's gone. It's gone. Travis Frederick retired. You got your tackles both hurt. Zach Martin now hurt. These guys are all pros every year. All Pro Bowlers. Pro Bowlers, they're gone. The offensive line isn't there anymore. So what does that mean? Well, they clearly devoted more resources to the offense than the defense. The defense, as we know, is nothing to write home about. In fact, they took CeeDee Lamb, who was the best receiver in the draft. When they had receivers, really, they probably should have beefed up the defense, but they didn't. So now what do they have? Bill Polian, the GM of the Bills, who built those great teams, and then the GM of the Colts, who built those great teams, once told me, not that long ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that the running back makes the O-line. I totally disagree with him about it. But this guy has forgotten more football than I'll ever know, so he has a reason for saying that. I always think, no, the running back makes the line. The line makes the back and the quarterback and the offense, even helps your defense in a way. But he insisted the running back makes the line. Well, okay, I think this is some evidence to the contrary. The Cowboys' offensive line is gone, and they don't have a defense. You know what the offensive line being gone means? Ezekiel Elliott's not the same. Last couple years, let's be honest. It's increasingly glaring. Not the same. Not running behind the best offensive line. Now he finds out how the other half lives, or how the other majority of football lives. Remember the Barry Sanders, Emmitt Smith debate? And what it all, Barry Sanders will get you these huge plays, but you can't rely on him for those consistent gains, whereas Emmitt Smith can run between the tackles and just get you consistent gains. But people knew, come on, man. You could say all that, but put Barry Sanders behind Emmitt Smith's offensive line. Would we even be arguing? Rod, you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. Would there be an argument if Barry Sanders ran behind that Dallas line?
No, there wouldn't.
There would not be an argument.
I mean,
years later, Emmitt Smith's not the same thing. Put Saquon Barkley, when he's healthy, behind the Dallas offensive line of the last several years. See what happens. Now Ezekiel Elliott's finding out what Saquon Barkley and these guys have had to put up with. Not the same. And the quarterback, Dak Prescott, has more respect for me than ever before because their offense, even if you thought, well, some of it's empty calories, they're playing catch-up, but it was still an offense scoring a lot of points, picking up a lot of yards, completing a lot of plays, scoring a lot of points. Behind no offensive line, and because of that, a compromised running back. And no defense. Well, you put Andy Dalton in, and he's rusty. I get it. Come on, he's rusty. But still, you put kind of like a pedestrian quarterback, a backup type, like a good backup in right now. And look what happens. You can't get anything going. So no O-line means no running back. And unless you have a really good quarterback, which Dak is, no quarterback, and it compromises your time of possession, and it does all kinds of stuff, Raj, which compromises your defense. That's what the Dallas Cowboys are dealing with. I think Andy Dalton's going to wind up winning some games because they have to play the rest of the NFC East 5 times now coming up. They have 2 games against Washington and at least 2 against the Giants. Anyway, the point is they got winnable games coming up. But I'll tell you what, Andy Dalton's making Dak Prescott some money. Meantime, Tua Tagovailoa. Why start him now? Jeff Saturday was on First Take asking that. Fitzpatrick's been doing good. They're 500. Why are you starting Tua now? My theory is Fitzpatrick's just good enough to be dangerous to your team. Fitzpatrick, he can take over a team. You're like, oh, my God, this is looking great. Look what he did for the Bucs a couple years ago, right? And you're looking at Jameis like, Jameis, a competent quarterback comes in. They're scoring 40 points a game. What's wrong with you? But Fitzpatrick's not that guy in the long run. He can give you a little boost. He's not afraid to take chances. Probably a little too unafraid to take chances. And he's a competent quarterback. He's an excellent backup. He's a kind of low-average starter sometimes, but good enough to make you think, yes, this is the guy, and then you wind up 6-10. And so I think the Dolphins look around and they go, okay, we got Tua on the rookie deal. So we have until the end of this rookie deal to really make hay, right? To really get something done. because, all that extra money's freed up for the rest of the team. So, what do we want to do here? Well, you don't want to start him week 1, especially with his injury history. But if the health checks out, and now you're 3-3, and you look around, you're like, team's pretty good. We're competing. And Fitzpatrick has done very well so far. But at 3-3 with no one running away with the division, maybe the time is now to make the switch. Like, if you get to the playoffs with Fitzpatrick, what do you think you're doing there? It ain't about this year. You're not going to win. And it ain't about next year. You haven't developed a quarterback. But if you have Tua in there, and he's really showing you something especially, and the Patriots are 2-3 right now, and the Bills have potential, but they're not like a dominant team, you might mess around and make the playoffs. And even if you don't, the real improvement in NFL quarterbacks to begin their career happens in year 2. That's when you see the real, the development happen. And you'd like that to be next year for Tua, because then you got a primetime quarterback in year 3 with several years left on his rookie deal to get something done in a division where there's instability in New England. We'll see what happens with Cam. Brady's gone. He left the cupboard bare. And the Bills, they're a good team, but that's not like, oh, my God, the Bills are the greatest team you've ever seen. They're a good team. Good defense, ascending quarterback, good coach. I get it. I get why they make this move now. 888-SAY-ESPN. 888-729-3776. You go into the Monday night doubleheader thinking 2 competitive games, and it didn't turn out that way, but they were still entertaining. The Chiefs and the Bills, both coming off losses, both really needing wins. Remember, Casey Joyner, the football scientist, came on this show. Was that last week or early this week, Raj? I already forgot.
It was Thursday.
But he was talking about how – it was Thursday. That's what I said.
Yeah,
said, Raj. Thursday. What's the matter with you? How could you not remember that? The point is, he talked about how the Chiefs don't like shootouts. They're 5-4 over the last 2 years in shootouts, which is surprising. Really, the Chiefs don't like shootouts? But when you take a lot of shots down the field, you would think in lower scoring games, that favors the less talented team. Because a single score, which could be a pass interference, a bad call, a lucky play, can really change the outcome of a game. So I usually think with very talented teams playing lesser teams, the lesser team wants to keep the score as low as possible, because then one score has a huge sway on the outcome of the game. But Casey Joyner was saying that, in fact, when you take a lot of shots, essentially, good things can happen for you. And those are not the kind of games that the Chiefs do really well in recently. It's weird because remember back to the beginning, the introduction of Patrick Mahomes in 2018. Patrick Mahomes in 2018, I think they went like 5-0 to start the season, something like that. But it was all high-scoring shootout games. And the whole thing was, don't get into a shootout with the Kansas City Chiefs. But you can see from the Chiefs' game plans, they don't want the shootout. Not that they can't win a shootout. I like them in a shootout, really, against any other team. The point is, according to Casey Joyner and the numbers, and the games, right? They're 5-4 now in the last 2 years in high-scoring games. It gives the other team a puncher's chance. And you could see in the Kansas City game plan, when they drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire, is it Helaire? Am I supposed to not even pronounce the H at all? Anyway, when they drafted him, the idea was he's this dynamic running back, a pass catcher out of the backfield that's going to help in the passing game, as though they need much more help there, as much as on the ground. But in fact, they use him to control the clock, to kind of control the game score. 26-17. That's not the kind, like 26-17, and the star of the game is the running back, who's supposed to be this dynamic pass catcher, but is used for basically ball control. It's one of the reasons, by the way, they ran the ball more than they threw it. This is only the second time in Mahomes' career that they ran the ball more than they threw it. Imagine having Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and your running backs are Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and now you're adding Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell has split him out wide. You put him anywhere. And having all those weapons and this insane quarterback who as a rookie threw 50 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, won the MVP, should have won the Super Bowl, and the next year wins the Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP with 3 consecutive playoff comebacks of double digits, down by double digits, right? You have that talent under center, all those offensive weapons in the passing game, and you're like, nah, we're going to run the ball. And you do it successfully, that actually gives you the best chance to win. It's a nightmare for the rest of the league because let's say you're like, no, we're going to counteract that strategy. We're going to make them beat us with the passing game. Okay. You're going to make the Kansas City Chiefs rely on Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. All right. You know, that's their fallback plan. Oof. It's also the reason, though, why I think the Patriots, I'm assuming Cam Newton gets it together because he looked good early in the season. Then he struggled a little in a win. Then he got COVID. He didn't play. And then he looked bad this last week. But assuming Cam can get it together as the season goes on, I think Cam is an excellent player. I can't believe that's something I still have. I think Cam's actually good. I like the Patriots as their biggest challenger, as their greatest threat. Belichick coaches very well against everyone. Particularly, though, he seems to give the Chiefs problems. And Andy Reid, look at their history, and Patrick Mahomes. And when you think about what the Chiefs are trying to do, like Belichick will play a lot more defensive backs than another coach might. He won't. Like, if you look at the defensive packages, sometimes 6 defensive backs on the field, right? Speed. So he covers guys, and it would seem encourages the Chiefs to kind of play the game the Chiefs want to play. But do you want to play that game against the Patriots? Well, even in any kind of game, I favor the Chiefs over the Patriots. But at least Belichick, a strength of his team, plays into the kind of way that the Chiefs seem to want to play. Now, I believe when push comes to shove, fine, the Chiefs, you wanted to dare Mahomes to air it out and beat you and beat your coverage and all that. I think he can. But I do think they present the biggest. I think the Patriots, because of Belichick, presuming that Cam gets it together, present the biggest problem. That's a good game. You see it up on the screen right now in the AFC. Top 4 teams all playing each other. Chiefs just played the Bills. Steelers about to play the Titans. I'm going to get into that in my power rankings coming up. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Here's Patrick Mahomes on the run game of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Obviously we had a few more pass plays called. We always do. But, once we saw how deep their linebackers and safeties and corners were playing, we knew that we had the run game. And so we really just stayed with it. And if teams are going to play us like this, you're going to see us running the football, and we have the guys that can do it.
It's almost like it stands to reason that's like, yeah, the Chiefs want to pass the ball. But if Casey Joyner is right, and the numbers bear him out, it's not even the best way for them to play. So it's almost like Andy Reid is fielding a team where your best chance is to take away the thing they do best, which is obviously with Patrick Mahomes under center and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and running backs who can catch, which is obviously throw the ball. But it's almost like Brer Rabbit, right? Don't throw me in that briar patch. So like they're daring you just with their personnel to give them the run, and then they run. they got the horses to do it. Keith in Virginia, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio.
Hey, Max, appreciate you taking the call. Look, to me, this is about Kellen Moore as a play caller, and let me explain. This is about identity. They made Ezekiel Elliott the highest-paid running back in the league. For years, they were a run-first offense, play action, which Dak Prescott's very good at, and then you rush the passer when you get the lead. Ever since he took over, if you go back and look at the stats, Ezekiel Elliott, even in close games, would get 15 to 18 rushing attempts a game, and they throw the ball 40 to 45 times. And that's not a winning formula in the NFL, and it's especially not a winning formula for the Dallas Cowboys. So you have to have an identity, and he's the issue. When he took over, I don't remember when it was, but when he took over for Jason Garrett.
When you say he, who do you mean?
Kellen Moore.
You're saying Kellen Moore is the play. Although Jason Garrett, did you see this decision that Joe Judge and Jason Garrett made in the Giants game? Up 13-10, 4th and 2 from the Washington 38, they punted. I mean, you talk about play calling. That's no great shakes. And I've seen Garrett as head coach punt in situations, in short yardage situations when he had Ezekiel Elliott, and I'm like, what are you kidding? So when you say identity, what do you mean? You want Zeke to get the ball more?
They should be a run-first team. That should be their identity.
But you can't do it if you can't run block. Like their offensive line, forget about the proportion of run to throw to pass to and play action, number of percentage of play action calls and everything. I don't know why everyone doesn't run play action all the time. It seems to be better than not doing it. But forget about all that. All those things on offense are possible. When 4 out of the 5 guys on your line are perennial Pro Bowlers, they're all gone. They don't have them anymore. I mean, they'll get a couple back, but as of right now, their center's gone, both tackles are gone, and a guard is gone. Their best players. Their first-round picks, they're not there. So the run blocking's not the same. The pass protection's not the same. Nothing's the same. And what you saw last night, what Andy Dalton highlighted, was how much of that Dak Prescott was covering up for them. Dalton just made Dak some money. News from Max Kellerman Nation. Keith just hit us up on the Dr. Pepper call-in line. By the way, it's champion versus champion at UFC 254 when Habib Nurmagomedov takes on Justin Gaethje. Coming this Saturday, October 4th, special start time of 2 p.m., only on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. UFC 254 is exclusively available to ESPN Plus subscribers for $64.99. Visit espnplus.com/pay-per-view for more details. Up next, /PPV. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. The Los Angeles Dodgers and Tampa Bay Rays are breaking moves, sending Tyler Glasnow and Clayton Kershaw to the Hill for Game 1 of the World Series. ESPN Radio is your home for every pitch of the World Series. Tune in today at 7:30 p.m. Eastern for Game 1 of the Dodgers-Rays on ESPN Radio. And now we pause, Raj, for some
Breaking news is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. Build your winning team today. Go to linkedin.com/sports.
Here's the thing about Clayton Kershaw. I take no pleasure in killing him about choking. I hate it. Do you understand? Clayton Kershaw, Steve Carlton. Let's talk about the greatest left-handed starting pitchers in the history of baseball. Steve Carlton and Randy Johnson are two of them, certainly over their career, and their peaks match anyone's peaks. But both Johnson and Carlton would have these amazing all-time years followed by good years, like very good years by anyone else's standards, but not quite Cy Young level or, top 3 or 4 Cy Young, but really good. Have a couple of those, and then another amazing year in different patches of their careers where they seem to rediscover themselves and reach new heights and everything, and they did it for so long. So the quality of their prime and their longevity is greater than, say, so far Clayton Kershaw's or Sandy Koufax's, right? But the thing that Koufax and Clayton Kershaw did, and by the way, I'll say Johan Santana too. People don't realize that, I'm looking for a chunk of years, right in the middle of their career, 3, 4, 5 years, where they're the dominant pitcher, where they're winning the Cy Young or almost doing it every single year, right? Johan Santana did that. Johan Santana led the league in ERA 3 or 4 years out of 4 years or something like that. He was but Kershaw was even better. Kershaw, in the middle of his career, from 2011 to 2014, well, listen to his finishes in the Cy Young race, okay? He won, I'll do it like this. He won 3 Cy Young awards in 4 seasons, okay? 1 year, he led the league in games started, okay? So he didn't miss any turns in the rotation. Bunch of guys tied for that, right? He led the league in whip, walks, and hits to innings pitched, meaning he gave up fewer base runners per inning than anyone in the league, period. He led the league, whip. Don't give me this fancy whip stuff, He led the league in ERA plus, So you adjust for ballpark and all that stuff, and he was the best pitcher. Oh, no, it's still too fancy. How about ERA? Because he led the league in that, too. That was the year he didn't win the Cy Young. He came in second. The 3 other years he won. So he should have probably won the Cy Young that year. He probably should have won 4 in a row. He won 3 out of 4. So few pitchers who ever lived ever did anything like that. Koufax is one of them. And then Kershaw wasn't done, by the way, because the next couple of years, he finished, where did he finish? 3rd and 5th because he got hurt. But just so you know, 2.13 ERA and a 1.69 ERA. Finished 3rd and 5th. And when he had the 2.13, he tied for league lead in games started. He led the league in complete games and shutouts, in innings pitched, in strikeouts, in fielding independent percentage, meaning when you take defense out of it, you just see like what you would expect the ERA to be, right? Based on his other numbers, he was actually the best there too. And strikeouts per 9, came in 3rd in the Cy Young vote. He could have easily won the Cy Young there too. So what are we up to? 5 years? You could have argued he deserved 5 straight Cy Youngs as it was, got 3, a 2 and a 3rd place finish, a 2nd and a 3rd place finish. And then inning for inning was as good as anyone in 2016, but missed a bunch of starts, so he finished 5th. And then in 2017, led the league in wins and ERA plus. I mean, and finished 2nd in the league, and in Cy Young could have won there too. Like, you could argue he should have 6 Cy Young awards. As it is, he has 3 first-place finishes, 2 seconds, and a 3rd in 6 years. You know how great that is? He should be in a category with 5 or 6 pitchers in the history of baseball. Sandy Koufax, Walter Johnson, Lefty Grove. Like a couple of guys. But he's not. He's not, because Clayton Kershaw in the regular season has a lifetime ERA of 2.43. I just want you to understand, in this offensive era, his lifetime ERA as a starting pitcher is 2.43. That'll win you the Cy Young most years if you pitch a bunch of innings as he does and strike out a bunch of guys like he does. Pitches in a major market, has an offense, the whole thing, tons of wins. His winning percentage, by the way, 697. Is that the highest all time for a guy with it? But it's way, way up there. Here's the problem. His postseason resume. And everyone knows it. But do you know how bad it is? In 9 National League Division Series, NLDS, he has a 4.02 ERA. 4.02. So from 2.43, which is so insanely good for a career ERA with a guy with this many innings pitched, it's like unthinkable. He goes to 4.02. Well, that's thinkable, isn't it? NLCS, so now you're one stage later, 4.84. Now you're not even a good starting pitcher. That's not a good starting pitcher. 4.02, you can say, okay, well, you're facing better hitters and everything. 4.84 under any circumstances in any era is a bad starting pitcher. And in the World Series, smallest sample size, but he started 4 games in the World Series, 5.40. He stinks. And that's why the Dodgers haven't won. In 1981, Fernando Valenzuela was the ace of the Dodgers staff. He was this 20-year-old phenom, and he was lights out in the playoffs. They won the World Series. In the World Series, he had a game where he gave up 4 runs, but it was over 9 innings. He struck out a bunch of guys, and they won the game. That was his worst start. In 1988, Oral Hershiser, the ace of the staff, remember, he won the Cy Young in 88, but for most of that year, Danny Jackson was supposed to win. Was traded from the Royals to the Reds, and he had a bunch of wins. Or David Cohn was supposed to win. He was crazy, but Hershiser just stopped giving up runs at a certain point. But how would he pitch under pressure? He broke Whitey Ford. I believe he broke Whitey Ford's consecutive scoreless innings pitched in the World Series. Okay? Whitey Ford broke Babe Ruth's record as a pitcher to do it. He put his name in the record books of like the greatest of all time. And that's why the Dodgers won, because their ace was the best version of himself when they needed it to be. So they won in 81. They won in 88. They had Valenzuela. They had Oral Hershiser. Now they have Clayton Kershaw. And he's better than Hershiser or Valenzuela ever were until it matters most. Then they were studs, and he's been a dud. Come on, Clayton. Yet another chance. Game 1. It's not Game 7. You haven't pitched twice already in the series. It's Game 1. Please, at least give them a 5 and dive with 2 runs allowed. Do me a favor. Give up 3 runs in 5 innings, but so it's a tie game in the 8th inning, or please let the Dodgers win so I can come on this show tomorrow and not kill you. His name belongs with the greatest of all time, like Koufax. But Koufax in the World Series in over 40 innings pitched .95 ERA. That's why the Dodgers would win World Series. Koufax, Valenzuela, Hershiser, big game pitchers. That has not been Clayton Kershaw. I would love for him to turn that around. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who save with Progressive save over $750 on average. Axe Max is coming up. It's time for some straight talk. You know what covering your bases in baseball is, right? Making sure you have no holes in your defense. Raj, you talk so much, your vocal cords get loose.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I start to read something, I sound real cheesy, like I'm trying to put on a radio voice. It just happens after a while. That's right. Season 2 of the ESPN Investigates podcast is now available. The Running Man tells the story of see what I mean? Tells the story of an obscure former Olympian, an alleged serial sexual predator, and how a 14-month ESPN investigation brought him out of the shadows. More than 50 men were physically abused and mentally manipulated by their coach, quote unquote, for over 40 years until they banded together decades later to find justice. Subscribe and listen now to ESPN Investigates wherever you get your podcasts.
Axe Max.
So they're going to ask me questions, huh, Raj?
That's how it goes. Just on the phone lines. Just call up and ask Max.
888-SAY-ESPN. Jeff in Cleveland, you're on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio. What you got to ask me?
Hey, Max, how you doing? I'd like to know why Letterman's daughter is allowed to judge fights.
Yes.
And
Julie Letterman has had an excellent career. She had a bad night. What, like, have you disagreed with a lot of her cards?
I'm not aware of a lot of her cards, but I am aware of lopsided and incorrect judging. And I thought that was a classic example.
Let's put it this way. You could make the argument that Lopez won 1 through 6, although many would say that Lomachenko won the second round. But see, what happens is, and I disagree with Julie's card. I think at best you can say it's an 8-4 fight for Lopez. And you could have had it as close as 6-6. You could not have had Lomachenko winning. So I don't want to get too hung up on the judges because the right guy won. Like, if you have a range of 6-6 to 8-4, then you would expect maybe a majority decision win for Lopez. One judge has it 6-6, one has it 7-5, one has it 8-4. That would be like a perfect distribution of scores. However, if 1 through 6 is Lopez, and Lomachenko really came on in rounds 8, because 7 could have also gone to Lopez. You can give it to Lomachenko. You could also give 7 to Lopez. So 1 through 7 might be Lopez. And the 12th was also Lopez. So the rounds in question where it's tough to give to Lopez, that Lomachenko won are 8, 9, 10, and 11. Those are 4 rounds. Is it possible that Julie Letterman was sitting on a side of the ring where one guy or another's back was to her and it was hard to see some shots? And given the fact that Lopez seemed to be winning round after round after round, even though the momentum shifted, see, a judge has to be wary of this. One fighter is winning round after round after round. Another fighter, the fighter A, is winning all the rounds. Fighter B has a better round than he's had. And so the natural human nature is to notice the shift in momentum and give the round to fighter B. But a trained judge has more discipline than that. And they think, nope, I know fighter B did better, but they still didn't win the round. Right? They're on guard for that. And if you're sitting on a side of the judge because there's there's one judge on three different sides of the ring, and you're sitting on a side of the ring where your view is obscured, and you're on guard for not just giving the shift in momentum rounds, and there are really only 4 rounds that Lomachenko won clean, maybe in 3 of them she didn't have a good enough view. It's possible. She's had an excellent career. I think she had a bad card. News from Max Kellerman Nation. Jeff just hit us up on the Dr. Pepper call-in line. I'm going to take a bunch more calls in the next segment, Raj. I'm threatening to do it. 888-SAY-ESPN. 888-729-3776. Disaster in Big D, the Max Kellerman Show.
ESPN Kellerman Show. Max Kellerman Show on ESPN Radio.
Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN News, the ESPN app, and SiriusXM Channel 80, and on your smart speaker. 888-SAY-ESPN. 888-729-3776. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. And the Max Kellerman Show is brought to you by Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. No, Raj, I don't think I need to rehash my tremendous DraftKings win this week. I think we did that at the top of the show. We don't need to reset the next hour and do it again.
We don't have another press conference scheduled.
Look,
no, we don't have a press conference scheduled, but go ahead. Just do your real quick there.
I just want to say that I won 54 big ones. That's right. Dollars. Off of you and Bill Wolf and Nick Tutz. And
Ben Lyons, who texted me and said you were lying.
Ben Lyons.
Said you were lying because he also had Kyler Murray, so you weren't the only one.
Oh, Ben Lyons, he came in last. Tell me I'm lying. No one's looking at his team. I'm looking at the contenders. I am the champion of DraftKings. Isn't it amazing when you play daily fantasy or when you lose, it's like, bad luck. I was going to take this guy. But when you win, you're convinced you're a genius. Yeah. I am a fantasy genius. Meantime, I said I was going to take calls. Chiefs are going to be a problem. They had a bad defensive effort against the Raiders, but their defense has been underrated last couple of years. And last year it was pretty good. It was almost a top third defense. And now they're going to add Le'Veon Bell, whatever he has left. Clyde Edwards-Helaire was advertised as a weapon out of the backfield, multi-purpose kind of guy. But actually, they've just been using him to control the clock, the ball. Really, it's just time of possession. The Chiefs. Could you imagine you're game planning to play the Chiefs and you're like, all right, what they're going to want to try to do is beat us with a running game. You can't. You must prepare against the Chiefs to stop all the receivers that Patrick Mahomes, the ultimate weapon under center, has. You have to give them the running game, but that's kind of what they want. Look, when they lost Kareem Hunt, and he got himself in trouble by by committing a crime, Damian Williams stepped in admirably and played clutch in the playoffs, too. But Damian Williams, nice back, was not like an elite kind of electrifying back, but a good player. Kareem Hunt gave you that was the best quadruplets I'd ever seen in my life. We talk about triplets: quarterback, wide out, running back. Add a tight end and tell me a better quadruplet than Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Kareem Hunt. How about Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Helaire, sorry. Or is it Elaire? Am I just not pronouncing the H at all? It's very confusing. The point is, I know it's very early, but the dude is electric. And I don't know, just give me quadruplets. Give me the four skills position guys. Better than that. Give me a quarterback, one wideout, one running back, one tight end. And I know it's a little bit like, well, what does that really say, right? Like it's like when a guy hits for the cycle in baseball. Oh my God, it's so rare, it's awesome. Yeah, but it's actually better to hit 2 home runs in a double and a single than a home run, triple, double, single. Just some kind of weird like OCD thing. We like to check every box. Still, just for the hell of it, let's have some fun. Give me a better quadruplets than this. Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Travis Kelce. An underrated defense, a great coach, and a team where, fine, make it tough for Mahomes. And just hand the ball to the running back. And now you have Le'Veon Bell. You have 2 running backs, so you can kind of you can put them anywhere. They can catch passes. Andy Reid on the running game.
Well, listen, we felt like, and this is me talking now, so I didn't think I gave the guys enough of a chance last week with it, and especially the second half. And so we wanted to make sure that, we're best when we have some kind of a balance going, when you can kind of go back and forth. It puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the defense. And so we were able to do both, and we felt like we needed both in this game.
Think 161 rushing yards is any good? Like, realize you get, he's an all-purpose guy. He may not, run between the tackles type guy necessarily for them, but they don't really need that. What they 161 yards on the ground. 161 yards on the ground. One dude. And now you're going to add Le'Veon Bell. That's the best you can do? Hey, do we have the sound from Patrick Mahomes from earlier, guys? I want to play that. Let's listen to what Patrick Mahomes had.
Yeah, obviously we had a few more pass plays called. We always do, but once we saw how deep their linebackers and safeties and corners were playing, we knew that we had the run game. And so we really just stayed with it. And if teams are going to play us like this, you're going to see us running the football, and we have the guys that can do it.
It's like fighting Sugar Ray Robinson back in the day. Don't box with this guy. He's in welterweight. He's too tall, too long a reach. Hands are too fast. Footwork's too good a boxer. Don't punch with him either. You want to punch with him? One of the greatest punchers of all time and one of the greatest chins of all time. In other words, he's just better than you. The Chiefs are just better than everybody. They're better than everyone. I'm taking them against the field. And by the way, here is the scary thing about the Chiefs. This is what's actually scary. They have an underrated defense. A couple years ago, they were good enough. And they should have won the Super Bowl. Pre-snap penalty, AFC Championship game. Tom Brady, just recall, Tom Brady throws an interception, game over, Chiefs advance to the Super Bowl. Oh, wait, no, pre-snap penalty. Give him the ball back. Tom Brady never looks back. And Mahomes never gets to touch the ball in overtime. Understand, if not for that pre-snap penalty, the Chiefs play the Rams in the Super Bowl, probably win. But their defense wasn't that good. It was good enough, it looked like. Following year, last year, they had almost a top third defense. I want to say they were the 11th ranked defense out of 32 teams. Just call it a top third defense. And they won the Super Bowl. Here's the crazy thing. What if the Chiefs, look at the Bucs defense. What if the Chiefs actually develop a defense like that, where you're looking at them with a top 5 defense? Ugh. Even without it, I'm just telling you, I've never experienced this before. I see where people might think they're flawed, and I agree. I'm taking them against the field as though it's the NBA, not the odds-on favorite. I think they're just the favorites. We got them now. We're going to make them run the ball. Okay, here, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Here's 161 yards. And the Bills, by the way, are a good defensive team. They're a good defensive team. Josh Allen, he's had a couple of games not so great, but start the season, it was like, hey, he's an MVP candidate. Big arm, making better decisions, athletic, winning big games, putting up numbers. But it was still like, yeah, but when you think Bills, it's really the defense. Okay. All right. Good luck with this team. Okay, do I have time to take a caller, or is Clarence Hill already on the line, Raj? Oh, good. Clarence Hill from the Dallas-Fort Worth Star-Telegram joins me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Clarence, are you there?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Better than you this morning, I suspect.
I'm fine. It's the Cowboys that aren't doing so good. Jerry Jones is not doing so good. Mike McCarthy's not doing so good. I'm fine. I'm eating your Papados.
Look, Clarence, this is my thing about Jerry. Let's talk about Mike McCarthy. I haven't done that yet today on this show. I did it on First Take. When they hired Mike McCarthy, no one was beating down this dude's door. He was not coaching. He lost his job because he hadn't changed with the league. Jerry Jones looks around, hires him, and then they start talking about, well, he did some soul searching, looked in the mirror, found out he needed to learn more about analytics, and got himself a calculator and a protractor, and now he's ready to be a head coach again. But Clarence, to my mind, they were just looking for a dude who looked the part, with a pedigree they could sell to their fan base, a resume they could sell to their fan base, because Jason Garrett didn't have it, and that was Jerry's boy. But Jerry with his ego is never going to go get a Jimmy Johnson or a Bill Parcells again, someone who's going to get too much credit if they win. And therefore you wind up with a second-rate coach. I know Mike McCarthy won the Super Bowl. I get it, but that was years ago. I'm talking about for this NFL. Your thoughts on McCarthy?
You know, they were hoping they were getting somebody, Bill Parcells, Jimmy Johnson-esque, because of Mike McCarthy's resume. Last year, they said they had the talent. They blamed much of the breakdowns on the coaching. That's why they fired Jason Garrett. They felt that Mike McCarthy, his experience, one reason why they didn't want to go get a young coach or a college coach is because they wanted a proven winner because they thought they had the talent on the team to win now. It was never going to be a honeymoon. Jerry has to I look like he's been, misled with what they're getting from Mike McCarthy and his coaching staff because the coaching staff has let this team down on every level. You look at the defense, you look at special teams. It's been an abominable performance by the Cowboys, but most especially by this coaching staff. Jerry has to be let down.
Word on the street, I'm a suspect. Okay, word on the street, players aren't happy. What do you hear, Clarence?
Players have not been happy, and they've been quietly mumbling, especially, and mostly talking about the defense, because that's where the grumbling and that's where the struggles are as far as not knowing what they're doing, not being in position, all the indecision, and certainly the coach is not helping them get right. And that's where the struggles are because you look offensively, it's not a coaching issue. It's an injury issue with all his line. They don't have Dak Prescott. They put up numbers offensively. They just had some turnovers that have hurt themselves. But when the players are pointing fingers at the coaching staff and not been able to fix it, they're talking about the defense. They're talking about Mike Nolan's defense. And you look back at Mike Nolan's career, when has he ever had great defense? And you don't bring up Baltimore because every coordinator had great defense with Baltimore and Ray Lewis, and they got a whole lot of coordinators' jobs. That don't mean that the coordinators were all great. And that's been an issue, this defense. They went from a simple defense last year under Rob Marinelli and Chris Bouchard to this complicated defense, allegedly, with 3-4 and 4-3 and multiples and all this other stuff. And the Cowboys look lost. This defense is on pace to certainly break the team record for points allowed and threaten the NFL record for points allowed. I mean, they've allowed 34 points in each of the last 5 games. You just can't do that.
Well, look, they have names on the defense. And last year, I loved the linebacking core going into the season. But the linebacking core was exposed as inexperienced, I thought, at times, and really underperformed. But this year, no one expected the defense to be great. They did expect the offense to be good. And without Dak Prescott, we haven't seen that either, although it's a very small sample size. Clarence, I expect when they start playing the NFC East, Washington and the Giants, that Dalton will start to look a lot better. What's your feeling about what you've seen? Obviously, a very bad start, but what do you think about Andy Dalton's prospects the rest of the season?
Well, let's just say this. Dak covered up a lot of stuff. I remember in the past weeks, everybody talking about Dak's yardage. Well, they're coming from behind. They're garbage points. Everybody can get a lot of points or a lot of yardage when you're throwing 50 times a game. Well, Andy Dalton dropped back 50 times against the Cardinals and barely threw for 250 yards. I think he had 266. Dak Prescott had 3 straight games, NFL record of 450 yards or more. Yes, they missed Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, at least when they were behind, they were competitive. They came back in games. They won one, but they all made them close. It had a lot to do with Dak Prescott. You saw last night when they got behind, there was no hope in coming back. So Dak Prescott is a huge difference maker in what they do. But, again, this team is not good enough, even with Dak Prescott, but especially with Andy Dalton. If they're going to turn the ball over and not stop anybody, they're not good enough to come back, even in the NFC East. So, yes, they have a chance. They got 2 road games at the Redskins and at the Eagles. The East is bad. The Redskins are horrible. I fear for Andy Dalton against that Redskin defense line. They may be a bad football team. That defense line is one of the best in the league. They're going to be on his butt.
Clarence Hill from the Dallas-Fort Worth Star-Telegram on the Max Kellerman Show, ESPN Radio. I agree with you about Dalton. He looked bad. Although I suspect against the NFC East, he'll start to look a lot better. But the fact of the matter is there is a tipping point on an offensive line. And Dalton just made Dak some money is the bottom line.
No doubt.
But there's a tipping point on an offensive line. the Cowboys put their money where their mouth is. Like teams like the Giants always say, oh, we want to fix the line. Go ahead and draft the O-lineman in the first round year after year after year. It's a first round pick, a third round pick, a second round. The Dallas Cowboys, I think it was 4 out of 5 years, drafted an offensive lineman. It was something ridiculous like that. But Travis Frederick is retired, and both their Lyle Collins and Smith are both hurt, and then Zach Martin gets hurt. Clarence, at a certain point, like you can't run block, you can't pass protect. What are you supposed to do on offense?
I don't. You're supposed to feed Zeke. You're supposed to feed your $90 million running back. Your $90 million running back can't turn the ball over. Okay, he cannot turn the ball over the way he's turned the ball over this year. He has 4 lost fumbles this year. He had 5 in the previous 4 years combined. This can't be Zeke. You got to be able to lean on Zeke to take some pressure off of Dalton. And again, you say the NFC East, but the Eagles' defensive line and the Redskins' defensive line, that's the strength of those teams. And that's right at the Cowboys' weakness, those offensive lines.
Well, that's true. It's a weakness. It's amazing. They go from the best team in the league that way for many years to a weakness. But Ezekiel Elliott last year didn't put up numbers like we're accustomed to seeing, and the cracks in the offensive line were evident then, right?
Yeah,
his fortunes seem to be very tied to the line. And I think Ezekiel Elliott has so far been a legitimately great back. I've never thought he's the best running back in football. Like when my eyes are on Christian McCaffrey or Saquon Barkley or someone like that, I say qualitatively that's a higher level dude than Ezekiel Elliott. But Ezekiel Elliott had the offensive line. So how much of this is on him now to make that line better, right, through his play? How much is on Zeke?
You know, he cannot turn the ball over. I don't know how much more you can say it. You know, whether he rushes for 200 yards or 100 yards, what you can't do is be part of the problem. It's one thing to not be part of the answer, but another thing to be the problem or the source of the issues. And he was the source of the issues last night with fumbles on back-to-back drives that really turned that game. And you just cannot have that from Zeke. Hey, one thing you have to do is take care of the football. The Cowboys have not done that this year. And once they turn the ball over, there's no chance they're stopping anybody. The Cowboys have allowed scores on 11 turnovers this year, okay? As soon as they turn the ball over, the defense is not stopping them. And so you got to, number one, stop turning the ball over, and that starts with Ezekiel Elliott, your $90 million running back.
Okay, so I've maintained for years that Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones combined are actually a pretty good GM. They're above average. In the last 10 years, they average, over 8 wins a season, almost 9 wins, like 8.5 wins a season. And that's not good enough if you call yourself America's team. Although the state of our country now, maybe it's better than we deserve. But it's not good enough, right, if you're supposed to be this great franchise. But it is better than average, so my hat is tipped to Jerry and Steven, who never earned their positions. Daddy bought the team and installed him and his son as GM. To me, if Jerry can put his ego aside and go hire an actually great GM, I'm giving them credit. They're above average, but they're not great, as you can see year in and year out from the performance of the team. They would do much better. And let me give you an example, and I want to know what you think. CeeDee Lamb was the best wideout in the draft and maybe the most talented player left on the board. They needed defensive help. Clarence, they went out and got a wideout at a position of strength for them. They needed defensive help. If they could redo that draft, what do you think? Do you take CeeDee Lamb anyway, or do you go get help for the defense?
Okay, first of all, that dog won't hunt right there, okay? CeeDee Lamb has been great. He's been exceptionally great. Name a defender that they would have drafted at 17 that would have made a difference for the defense. Most likely they were taking K'Lavon Chase out of LSU. Look at his numbers. Look what he's doing. He's not doing a damn thing, okay? He would not help this defense. You don't pass up great players. And CeeDee Lamb is a great player.
So basically take the best player on the board.
At that point, you had to, because CeeDee Lamb was so much far and above any of the other guys that were available. You had to take CeeDee Lamb. You can't go back and say they shouldn't have done that. And regarding the Cowboys, the Cowboys changing their philosophy and hiring a GM, that dog won't hunt. This is Jerry Jones' team. This is Stephen Jones' team. It would never be another guy running that team.
But, Clarence, I know if I bought the Yankees, right, I'd want to be GM. And by the way, 15 years ago, I'd have walked in day one. 20 years ago, day one, I would have been a top 5 GM in baseball because it was populated by idiots at the GM level. Nowadays, I would know. I can't do it. Everyone has a 6 degrees from MIT and a staff who's even smarter than they are. right? I would know as much as I used to be. I'm not kidding. 20 years ago, I'd have been a top 5 GM in baseball my first day on the job. You could take advantage of them. They didn't know what they were doing. But now they all do. So Jerry has to realize this if he wants the Cowboys to get any better. I know you bought the team. It's a shiny toy you get to play with. Yeah, you own the Cowboys. You and your son get to be the GM. So you know what, Jerry? I'm a Giants fan. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. We don't have to worry about the Cowboys ever being great. That's the great Clarence Hill, speaking of great, from the Dallas-Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Thank you very much, Clarence. The Max Kellerman Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Small business protection just got easier with more than 30 coverage options available. Progressive has you covered. More at progressivecommercial.com. Are the Bucks about to make a big mistake with Giannis Antetokounmpo? With the Greek freak? Answer coming up. While you can't believe everything on social media these days, you can believe it's possible to start a new life as an IT pro in as little as 4 months. From the comfort of your own home, even if you have zero computer experience. Instead of waiting to see what happens when life gets back to normal, take control of your future now. Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation today. Live online classes meet just twice a week. It's not rocket science. It's mycomputercareer.edu.
Coming up Wednesday, the Patriots are 1.5 games back in the AFC East. So is it time to panic in New England? We'll answer that Wednesday on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, 6 Eastern, ESPN Radio, ESPN News.
With the Home Depot app, your phone is your most powerful tool. Find just what you need in a snap. Get a second opinion in seconds and have it all delivered free. Download today. The Home Depot, how doers get more done.
Is the salmon wild caught?
She only eats wild caught.
I need a price check on honey.
Don't get mad. Get E-Trade and get more than just trading. Investing, banking, guidance.
On-demand glucose monitoring, another life-changing technology from Abbott. So you don't wait for life, you live it.